Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the introduction of our Dr. Darryl Scriven. He is no stranger to WSSU, and so welcome back, Dr. Scriven. He is the executive director of the Florida A&M University Cyber Policy Institute, and he is going to share on the topic of ethical AI, responsible AI. What does this mean? And this is a part of our WSSU Generative AI series that we are providing this year for our faculty and staff. So I won't stand in the way of Dr. Scriven sharing all the knowledge he's going to share with you today. Welcome, Dr. Scriven.
Thank you, Dr. White Walker. And thank you, colleagues. It's a joy for me to be back with you. I think the last time I saw you all, it was Miss Payne's retirement. And I came through the campus and always get a lift in my heart, special place in my heart for WSSU. That's where I got my start as an administrator, senior administrator, and everything I have learned in that regard, that has been because of WSSU. So I want to share my screen and then we have some conversation. Um, let's see.
We will monitor the chat for you too also.
Okay, great. That'll be great. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
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 Okay, great. All right. Let me move the box here. And then screen. Okay. A lot going on this screen. All right. So again, greetings everybody. Really, really am excited about today because when I was on the campus as a dean, I didn't get a lot of time to do what I do as an academic, and that is as a philosopher, professional philosopher. So trained in philosophy, HBCU trained at Florida A&M, at Purdue, did my exams in ethics. And so when I was asked to engage this topic, it was right up my alley because I've been thinking about these things for years as an academic and even as an administrator, because these are the kinds of challenges that we have. And so we have to engage. Again, I want to thank Dr. White Walker. I want to thank Dr. Frank Ingram. Um, Frank is my guy. If anybody knows, Frank is my guy. I definitely want to thank Chancellor Brown, Provost Lawrence, and our deans, Dean Bott and Dean Battle, just for the leadership they provide and the opportunity they've extended. So ethical AI, this is how it was praised to me. Responsible AI. What does it mean? And normally that would end in a question mark, but it ends in an exclamation point, and I think there's something to that because there's an urgency to kind of figure out what this means, how we're going to use this, et cetera, et cetera. So all right. All right. So when I think back, actually, I want to start back during COVID. So I was dean during COVID, and actually, I was in New York at the time when we got the word. I was giving a presentation at a university in New York, and immediately during the presentation, they said, "Hey, look, everybody's got to go home." And we didn't know what was happening. So I managed to get on the plane. I didn't know if I could, but I got on the plane and I said, well, I'm just go back to Winston. I got back to Winston. Chancellor and Provost said, look, everybody has to go home. So we didn't know what was happening. We didn't even know what COVID was, but you all remember we had to shift within a week, or really in a weekend, to our modality online. Again, we didn't know what was happening. So in the chat, I want you all to just kind of answer this question for me. What is AI? I know we talk about AI a lot, and we want to talk about the ethics of AI. But in the chat, you all lay out for me, you're thinking, what is AI? Doesn't have to be deep, just a quick snippet. Somebody said the devil. The devil. Right? Artificial intelligence, yes. Say a little more about it. Okay, it's an assistant. Somebody says an assistant or a tool. All right. Anybody else? What is AI? Okay. Algorithm function. Oh, coming in now. Virtual support, data gatherer. Okay, the future. Okay. So when we talk about AI, we're talking about not only what it is objectively, but we're also talking about how we feel about it. Okay. It's a resource, not a replacement, and good people differ on that. But yes, so in a nutshell, what I want to say about AI is when we talk about AI, we're talking about software, and we're talking about software that mimics human cognition. Okay, yeah, oxymoron. Yeah, it mimics human cognition. So, in other words, um, it's programming, it's formulas, it's algorithms, creating, simulating a neural network, the same, similar to a human brain. Okay. And as we grow and develop that, that's what we mean by artificial intelligence. And it has sometimes narrow focus, sometimes it has a broader focus. Um, we don't have a general AI, but we do have generative AI. That means it can produce things. And so that's what we mean when we're talking about AI. Okay. But kind of like COVID, we often still don't know what it is. We know what it does. We don't know what it is. Okay. So, all right. Let me move this chat. So I want to talk about that a little bit because when we talk about AI ethics and AI responsibility, we need to know what we're talking about. So I want to use as a working definition for the ethical, because a lot of times we just presume the ethical, right? And there are professional people who do ethics, but oftentimes we don't consult them. So when we talk about the ethical, what we mean is to act consistently in accordance with some standard or principle or something that you're using to guide your actions or decisions. So I'll give you some examples. So many of you are familiar with the golden rule, do unto others as you have them do unto you. Okay, that's a principle with which it is possible to act consistently or inconsistently, right? So the reason that a person may not cheat or person may not lie is because they wouldn't want that done to them. Okay. But the interesting thing is sometimes you can get an advantage by violating your ethical principles. If you cheat, you think you get more. If you lie, you think you can get more. So there's a seduction there. There's a seduction where people are enticed to part with their ethical principles. Okay, but that's what we mean by ethics. So golden rule, deontology, which is a rule-based morality, or an act-based morality, or utilitarianism, the greatest good for the greatest number. A person can be a pragmatist and look at information to make decisions and be revisable. There are a number of ways and standards. You can have a standard in your organization, rules by which you can form an ethical principle and you either act consistently with it or inconsistently. That's what we mean by ethics, okay? Now, to be responsible, we're talking about using that standard or principle to make ethical choices and to take accountability for the outcomes of your choices. So one thing I've found when I'm talking with corporate AI representatives is that our students know how to use the tools, but they don't know how the tools work. They know how to use it, but they don't know how they work. And the truth is, sometimes we don't know how they work either. So we can't be accountable or responsible because we don't know how they work. We don't know what it is. Okay. We're just using it. Okay. We got a tool and students said this thing will do your homework for you. What? For real? Or one of us, hey, this thing will write reports for you. Oh, it'll do your work for you. Some of us haven't written a page in a year, an entire page in a year. And so, again, we have to be responsible. We have to be accountable for the work product that we produce, okay, in order to have responsible use of AI. And then in higher ed, we want to train faculty, staff, students, administrators to harness the power of AI while owning the implications of our use. So again, that's kind of what the conversation will center around today, what it means to ethically engage AI and to do that responsibly. All right. But why does it matter? What does it matter at Winston-Salem? What does it matter? Well, AI is shaping everything. See, it's not like one of the previous industrial revolutions where it hit one arena. It hit agriculture or it hit the assembly line. No, it's ubiquitous. It's happening everywhere and it's happening with a level of speed that we have not ever experienced. So it's about scale and it's about speed. Okay, it's transforming decisions in every discipline, every area, business, education, daily life, and that's creating challenges. But Winston-Salem has a commitment to equip our students with the skills to use this AI responsibly, right? And in other words, how do you train a student to develop the discipline and the faculty of attention and a certain level of expertise when there is a tool that can deliver the work product that you're supposed to spend years developing mastery for? Okay. An example would be we're trying to entice our students to walk to school in the rain with an umbrella when they have a Lamborghini sitting out front of their house. Okay. And we're trying to figure out what that means and what the impact of using that kind of tool, okay, is going to be. So, when I think about what is AI, I think about it like this. Imagine you were in a fight with, or you were confronted, let's just say, with Mike Tyson or The Rock or some huge person that you wouldn't want to engage in that way. You may be in trouble if it's just you. But if you had on your side an Incredible Hulk or Optimus Prime, well, it'd be a different situation. And so that's what AI affords our students and our staff and our faculty access to and our administration access to. But how do we use that so we don't tear down the world? Yeah, that's the question. So it's the community impact, right? How is it going to impact the people we say we love and care about and are doing all this for and are serving? Because we have to make sure that we don't trample over the very people we're trying to protect. So what makes AI ethical? What makes it harmful? If it's ethical, then it's going to be something that protects privacy, personal data, is going to um, provide for fair outcomes. So, for instance, I think I was looking at a broadcast, Scott Betts and a student were on being interviewed or something, and he brought up this idea of scraping the internet, and that's over in the harms. But there's this notion that once things are out there, it's not private, it's not personal. Or if you want to use it as an administrator, the question is, what can I use? Because Gemini is offering free usage for students, and some people are using that. But if you put private data in there, if you put personal data in there, now it's in the training model. And so there's some questions about that. Okay. Ethical means you act in accordance with standards and you consider the social implications. How does this impact communities? How does this impact workforce? How does this impact education? It might give me an advantage, but how does this impact everybody else? And we got to respect human dignity and rights. So many of you know that I was associate director of education at the Bioethics Center at Tuskegee, and that was established because of the presidential apology issued by Bill Clinton for the syphilis study done on the residents of Macon County, Alabama from 1932 to 1972. Okay, so they were being experimented on. They were told they were being treated, experimented on. Okay, they were being observed, and they didn't know anything about it. No informed consent. And so you see the parallel there. Sometimes people are being engaged and they don't have any informed consent. Their data, their information is being engaged, and they didn't say you could do it. Okay. I might have set this website up for people who go to visit my website to get this information, but I didn't say you could get a tool that could scrape the internet and bring the information to people without accessing my website. I didn't give consent for that. Okay, and we haven't even gotten into the litigation that's going to come from intellectual property conversations, etc. So harms cognitive offloading. What do I mean by that? I mean, and this is, my colleagues in the humanities know this best, that if you're trying to instill fundamental foundational skills like writing an essay, and a person hasn't sufficiently developed enough to do that yet, but they have a tool that will do it for them, they're cognitively offloading, or they're allowing something else to do what they would normally have to think and persevere and learn the skill to do. And that makes them all the worse for it because they may have a work product, but they can't defend it. They can't assess it because they've offloaded that to another thing. Okay. Again, the black box. They can use it, but they don't know how it works. Okay. So this whole scraping idea, I think that Scott brought up, it was, he's an artist. And so a lot of these images are being taken without permission. Okay. And it's going to bring up some IP challenges. There's an environmental impact. So there's a lot of energy that goes into training this data. It goes into setting up data centers, okay, now a lot of natural resources. Those are harms. And again, prioritizing efficiency over people's well-being, human labor. I mean, we say, hey, this is great. We don't need as many people. Well, what happens to the people? What are they going to do? I know we say reskill. I was at a conference last week and we were talking about AI solving problems in labor shortages in agriculture. And I said, that's great for the short term, but for the long term, it also minimizes the need for people to be in agriculture, and there's a mass displacement. So what do we do about that? Well, the answer that was given was, oh, we're going to need people to service robots. So I said, so you're going to take somebody who's working on the farm and reskill them in I don't know how many months, then now they're going to service robots and the engineers can't do it. There's a disconnect with some of that sales talk and rhetoric about what happens to people when something this nonlinear shifts and goes this quickly. So you have to have that at top of mind, especially at a place like Winston-Salem that is, committed to social justice, committed to liberal education. Um, as we unleash the genius, we need to unleash the ethical to make sure that the genius isn't overrunning the community, particularly our birth communities. Okay. So some of the real world challenges. So I want you all to kind of use the chat again. So I'll give you, these are hypos, the hypotheticals, the scenarios. I want to see what your thinking is on some of this. Um, so one challenge would be a university leverages an AI recruiting system and they want to screen their applicants and determine who should be admitted. Okay. What do you all foresee as some challenges with that? Stick it in the chat. Let me take a look. Any potential challenges with that? Learn the trends, analyze names, loss of control over admissions, illegally discriminate based upon bad training data. Yeah, programmer, unconscious bias, no infiltrate AI. Exactly. No control over meeting requirements. Yeah, I mean, it could be the case that you have a general idea of who scores well, who does well. That's generalized over populations, whether that be race, ethnicity, gender, geographic location. And then people are admitted or denied simply based upon broad categories, not their individual records. Okay. So you could foresee there'd be some challenges there. Where's the human element? Numbers don't explain everything. Exactly. And you at the behest of the algorithm. Okay, let's go to scenario two. Let's say OpenAI wants to build an AI data center in some of the rural communities near WSSU. What do you think of some of the challenges with that? Could bring some jobs, but what are some of the challenges?
I'm going to say the local community trying to
Okay,
figure
say more about that.
trying to figure out what's going on behind all the barbed wire and the chain link fences and the big
Yeah,
secret facility out in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, what's going on, right? Well, we know one thing that's going on, it's going to consume a lot of natural resources. And um, those data centers, they take a lot of electricity, they run hot, they need a lot of water to cool them down. Um, as somebody said, minimal jobs actually created, because if it's, again, the whole notion that AI makes things more efficient means you're not going to have a data center full of people just standing out there sweating it out. It's going to be, machines. And so um, it can change property values. It can impact the environment. Um, it can, in some communities, they report, the water being used up by the data center, and there's no water for the people. In fact, when I was a child, I grew up next to a park. We all played in it, and then I realized that I saw a lot of people getting cancer. One such person, Zagra, it's good to see you. Such person was my sister who got cancer in her 30s, and we didn't understand what was happening. She had to do chemo, she's doing well now. But the point is, there are some environmental hazards that are going on, and particularly poor and rural communities are being impacted. And we have to ask questions because sometimes they don't have a voice in a lot of these conversations. Okay.
There's another good example down in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. There's a Google site that's been under construction probably for at least 5 or 6 years now. When Google bought the property that they bought, it was basically swamp and marshland. Uh,
Yeah.
the city of Moncks Corner didn't think to do a little bit more research and stuff. So when Google bought the property, they also bought the water rights.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're at least the last time I was down there, they were in negotiations with the town of Moncks Corner to sell back water to the town.
Yeah, exactly. You want some water, you can buy it back from me. Right. So that's interesting. So let's go to the third one. So a hospital trains its medical diagnostic and assessment AI software on information obtained from volunteer samples. What could be some of the challenges there? No informed consent? Okay, could be, but they volunteered it. So um, they're not randomly determined. AI expected to make decisions on life and death. Yeah, so the AI is going to be used to make diagnoses. In fact, at some point, it's going to be medical malpractice if you don't use AI on some level to, inform the diagnosis. I don't want the AI to be my doctor. I want my doctor to be my doctor, but some of these tools are going to be used. Cognitive offloading, people defer. But here's one I want you all to consider. So I'll say that. So one thing to think about is the sample size is going to determine, what the AI produces as a product. In other words, the output or the product is only as good as the training data. So if the training data is limited or it is regional, then it may not reflect all the nuances and variations that you would find. So case in point, when we look at the mapping of the human genome and a lot of the samples that go into a lot of these the training data, what we find is there is an absence of African descended people. So Meharry Medical College, among a couple of other HBCUs, are engaging in an African Human Genome Project in order to put more samples from the continental Africa and African diaspora into the training data so that when medical diagnoses occur, we have a sample size that represents much more of the human genome, particularly people of African descent. Because when we go in, somebody could tell you it's something, but the training data is not complete enough at times. So that's a challenge. Okay. Um, yeah, and I see the chat is buzzing. So let me go to this fourth example. Try to move this out of the way. All right. So Wells Fargo, they want to use an AI loan approval system, and they want to look at the history of what people have, pretty much look like when they qualify for loans, and want to make the process more efficient. What could go wrong? Lending models probably aren't explainable, so illegal discrimination is difficult to uncover. AI bias, yeah, you have challenges, right? And so it doesn't mean we don't use the tools. It means that we have to be inserted in the process to make sure that principles, ethical principles, principles of responsibility are being leveraged and employed. Okay, so like I said, I saw Scott and the student that works with Debzani over in Center for Applied Data Science. They gave some statements about what they think responsible AI should be in an interview. But I wanted to share with you all something I think would be helpful, and it's called Dragonfly Thinking. So there is an Australian attorney. Um, Her name is Anthea Roberts, and she owns a company called Dragonfly. And the notion behind her company is that she believes that we're underutilizing AI and we're utilizing it in a way that almost lends itself to bias. Because um, a dragonfly, if you know about a dragonfly, it has these compound eyes. And the dragonfly eyes are made up of thousands of lenses. And it's one of the most skilled predators um, because they almost always know where their prey is headed. The lenses are such that they have a 300 almost a 360-degree view, and they said they're about 95% successful in their hunting rates. The point here, the application is we need to utilize dragonfly thinking when we're employing AI to get ethical and responsible outcomes. So what is dragonfly thinking? I have here a little blurb here, read it to you, and then I'll just explain it. So it's a synthesized approach to thinking that employs AI to craft uh, a more holistic answer to questions from a multidisciplinary lens. So in other words, if you give a student an assignment, or even if you're doing something, and you say to yourself, Bard or Claude, what's the answer to this? You ask it a question, it'll give you an answer. And most people will take that answer and they kind of run with it. They might edit it themselves, but they'll run with it. Okay. Dragonfly thinking says, what would an economist say about this answer? What would a philosopher say about this answer? And then, um, so it's not kind of a Socratic method where you have this dialectic. You have a point, counterpoint. It creates a synthesis, and then you take the synthesis and then you interrogate it more. What would social activists say about this? What would uh, a mathematician say about this? What would a biologist say about this? And so at the end of this process, you have come up with a much more comprehensive answer that minimizes blind spots. Because what happens now is you ask the thing, you treat it like the Oracle on Minority Report, and you ask it, it gives an answer. You think, okay, it's omniscient, it can't be wrong, it has access to all this data. But the truth is, it does have biases. It is trained by people. It is trained with a certain set of data, not all data. And so if you employ different large language models and different vantage points, disciplinary vantage points, you get a much more comprehensive answer, especially with ethical thinking, responsibility thinking in mind. So dragonfly thinking is an approach that promotes ethical and responsible use of AI. So looking at some of the principles, because City has done a great job putting out documents that talk about responsible, ethical AI use, what the approach is at the university, what the faculty and staff and administrators are going to be engaged in, how students are going to be developed by this. And so just these principles, awareness, okay, analysis, assessment, and then some level of action. But they have to be, again, informed by your guiding principles, okay, your values, your mission, your history, okay. And so just some core principles. I think I just want to provide some idea for conversation, discussion, but to think this through, you have to keep track of human well-being and dignity. It's not just that the tool is an incredible Hulk or a gorilla that you can use. It's at your beck and call. It's a genie. It's all that. And we have to keep track of what it's doing to one another and society. Okay. We have to, again, this dragonfly thinking to mitigate this bias because there are multiple lenses, there are multiple sides of an issue. Efficiency can't simply be the only thing that we're after. That's great, but what about some of the bias that occurs? What about some of the harms that occur? Okay. We wanted to be transparent on a level. We want to know what's going on. We don't want our students to walk out with these tools and it be like them pressing the pictures on a McDonald's cash register. And when they say a Big Mac costs $40,000 and the customer objects, their only response is, that's what the machine said. We have to do better than that, and not just our students, for us as well, because we have to own our work product and own these solutions. And then again, it can't just be the ghost in the machine. There has to be some human oversight. We have to work hard and actively engage. And a lot of times, some of the pushback we give with AI tools is because it's elevating our level of participation. We already had our test bank. I mean, I've been having that test bank for 20 years. It's in the drawer. I don't have to change it at all. But we have to engage, learn the technology, keep up with it, learn what's going on under the hood so that we can promote responsible outcomes with AI. Okay. So it's our time to lead. It's rare that HBCUs get a level playing field where we can lead a field. Usually when we hear about a thing, it's come and gone. .com, come and gone. Crypto, come and gone. Okay, but we get a chance to lead the field, not just in HBCU land, but nationally and internationally, if we take seriously our character, what we do, who we serve, and how to best serve our communities through leveraging some of these tools. Yes, there are going to be some challenges that we have to engage, but we got to engage them. That's what we're doing. So the four things I thought through as concluding is we have to align AI use with the history, mission, and values of Winston-Salem State. We often rehearse Simon Green Atkins and Teachers College, but in the community that we serve, let's line our AI use up, not just to randomly complete tasks, but to really lift up the community and the legacy of Winston-Salem State. Stay in constant ethical conversation. It's got to be conversation. I know it's tempting to think that, you're right and somebody else is wrong, but it's a conversation. There are lenses. Okay, there are strong arguments, there are weaker arguments, there are supported arguments, there are things that are lacking support, but we all have the same kind of agency and commitment to the institution and to our students, so we have to stay in conversation. You want to foster responsible AI literacy, competency, and expertise. So there are levels, and we need to engage in all of them. One thing we're doing at FAMU through the Cyber Policy Institute is we're creating certificates, AI certificate, 3-course certificates in AI, and a 3-course certificate in cyber policy. We're getting, and that's just on the literacy level. If they want competency or expertise, they're more engaged courses, but we have to engage the campus in such a way that there's some kind of reward or credential where we can show mastery. And I know you all are doing some of this badging, micro-credentialing, but again, we have to interweave it into the fabric of the institution. And lastly, we want to champion expertise in AI and cyber policy, because when we hear AI and cyber, many times we think tech, and people in non-tech disciplines, humanities, social sciences, sometimes feel like, oh, that's not for me. but there is a need for us to engage policy as well. Somebody has to moderate governance guidelines, the ethics of it, responsibility, because it's affecting all of our disciplines. And that's a place of expertise that we can build. So beyond this, if me or my team can help with that, we would love to do that. But together, we can ensure AI serves humanity and not the other way around. So thank you, colleagues. Look forward to having conversation and dialogue about this.
So this is your time to ask questions of Dr. Scriven relevant to his topic, or share some of your ideas that you had in the chat. Thank you, Dr. Scriven, for your wonderful talk.
Absolutely. So you all can come off mute and ask questions, or you can put them in the chat. But it'd be great to dialogue with you. It's great to see my colleagues, a few from Cyber Policy Institute, as well as all the colleagues from Winston-Salem State. I see a lot of names.
I have a question, Dr.
Okay.
Scriven.
Okay.
So you talked about policy and guidelines. Where do you start with that? I mean, we are in the process, but it seems like our projects and initiatives are taking over before guidelines.
Yes. Yes. No, it's a great question. Great question. You have to start. So we've done it two ways. One, because we have a Cyber Policy Institute, we can dedicate, discrete energy to building policy. So one thing that we've done is we have engaged our student interns in projects that are AI that have two sections. One is the technology and one is policy. So I give you an example. So we're doing, we have 10 AI interns that we pay through our center, and they are engaged with a corporate client, the CSI companies. They are job search company, parent company, Indeed. And they're building an AI solution for job seekers and resume builders that is both, audio as well as visual. So in other words, a talking AI head that engages job seekers. Well, there are all kinds of challenges in terms of use of that AI, as well as governance. So we have them looking at National Institutes of Standards and Technology. The NIST is a national framework that they're engaging. They're thinking about the corporate environment, but they're coming from different disciplines. Some of them are computer science, some of them are journalism, some of them are business, some of them are psychology, because all of these disciplines are needed in terms of, I call it Dragonfly Thinking now, but to create a robust solution when it comes to a policy lens. So the tech team, they're focused on the tech side as a solution, but we require all the students on the tech team to go to the policy meetings because they need to understand what are the issues, the ethical issues, the practical issues, so that when they build the technology, it's responsive to those issues. So I guess that's a long way to say, start where you start. You start where you are. If you're starting with the technology because that's the most attractive, everybody wants to use the tech, then great. But then also have groups that talk about the use of the tech, some of the challenges. And like today, when you saw in the chat, when people were raising issues, when the issue comes up consistently enough, then you write a policy around it. What do you think should be a use case? And what we're talking about, because it can seem daunting, right, to write this policy, it could be position papers, white papers that engage an issue that not only work for your organization, but you can send that to legislators. You can send that to, elected officials. because they're wrestling with the same issues. They just don't have the expertise that you have. They're not using it the way the universities are using it. And they're not thinking through the issues as close to the ground as the university is. But you can come from use of the tech to having conversations about the technology, realizing that some of the people that use the tech will also be good in the policy conversations, but some of the people who are not on the tech will also be very good in the policy conversations. And we have to build those interdisciplinary teams of student users, staff users, faculty, administrative users to really come up with a policy that has this kind of dragonfly multiple lens approach to it.
Thank you. You have a question in the chat.
Okay.
It says, this is for both Dr. Scriven and City. What resources, preferably free, do you recommend so that I can learn some of the basics using AI with the specific purpose to enhance my classes and lesson plans? I'll let you go first.
Okay, great. So there are, and I don't know what kind of platform you all have at Winston-Salem. What we're working on at FAMU is a platform from a company called Boodlebox. And Boodlebox is like a clearinghouse of AI learning applications. So they may have 10, ChatGPT, Claude, Bard, Llama, etc. But what they also have is different bots that can be integrated into Canvas, teaching and learning assistants. It teaches you how to make bots. And, oftentimes we have to look for professional development that's exterior to our institution so we can bring things back to the institution. And we're working on getting that. It'll be a university-wide platform. So it's the single sign-on, the same way we sign on to our email or whatnot. We'll sign on and be able to access that. There'll be training exercises that go along with that. But, you can look it up, Boodlebox, Boodlebox, and you can engage some of that. But there are so many companies vying for the space. Our demand has to be that we get professional development and training. It's not just selling us an app or service, but training as well. But Dr. White.
Okay, City team put several resources in the chat. The AQ resource, the course commons that we have. We are members of the AQ partnership, so they have a lot of AI courses, quick study courses. And then also Dr. Leverett put in that our most recent City Beat has an entire AI section, Dr. Market. So we won't take up a lot of time sharing all of ours, but we'll resend to everyone that's in this workshop.
Fantastic.
Other questions for our speaker? We have about 5 minutes left.
Hey, good afternoon, Dr. Scriven.
Good afternoon.
Can
I put in the chat to you that there's something wrong with my camera, so I can't really show my face, so to speak.
Okay.
But I'm the one who put in the chat that AI is an oxymoron. And
you would do that as an English professor, Dr. Manico.
and so I'm bothered about the language, calling it artificial intelligence, when we actually don't know what human intelligence is.
Yeah.
And how can you have artificial intelligence? And there's a whole area that really I'm interested in about what consciousness is and whether or not that can be duplicated by a machine, what intelligence is, and if it can be duplicated. And the other area that I have a particular concern about is what learning theory is undergirding any of this use of whatever.
Yes.
And I like the point you make about when we're involved in teaching students to write. That's a basic skill.
Yes.
which is related to reading and other communication skills and viewing. And it involves thinking, not just the skills, but it also involves thinking. And that if we keep pushing these uh, apps or whatever, platforms or whatever, on the students, when will they ever learn to these skills for themselves? When will they ever learn to think? And how will they be able to evaluate anything if they really don't know how to think?
Yes.
So
It's a real
those are
question.
those are my concerns. We've been talking about this in our department too, so I would be interested in your views.
Yes, ma'am. No, I mean you have hit the central issue on the head because these tools um, from their inception were not made with the learning process or human development necessarily in mind on a fundamental level. So the question is really being asked when you go into the K-12 environment and students who have not developed certain faculties of attention, critical thinking, rigor, um, when they're introduced to these tools that can generate, and the question that they ask is a nihilistic one, and that is, so, why would I waste my time doing something that this thing can do for me? And we know the answer to that, but we're on the other side of it, having gone through it. So it's really can function as a tool for us. But yes, it does seem like it can undermine some of the foundational skill acquisition and human development that we're trying to foster. So it's whether we say it's an oxymoron or in philosophy we would probably say it's self-defeating. But the truth is, going back to the top of your question, um, having the profit motive as the origin for a lot of these tools, I'm suspicious, right? So that's why the ethical and the responsible has to be involved in not just the implementation, but we have to go back to the design phase and say, what's going on inside of these tools? Can we design a tool that functions the way we need to for our communities to grow and develop and be sustained? And if not, can we structure our environment such that we design the learning process for these tools to be introduced at a stage after the students have demonstrated certain levels of mastery? And if not in that chronological order, at least can we structure the environment to where we foster the development of these skills, at least coterminously with the utilization of these tools? Because we know they have to use the tools. Here's why. When we're talking about competitive advantages in job markets and we're sending computer science students out and they have 3.8 GPAs. Here's a question that employers
I think he froze up a little bit. Um, we'll see if it comes back on. Then, sorry, he was in the middle of answering the question. But do you have any questions for our entire city team is on here? So if you have questions for us, we can give those. I'm going to put an exit ticket in the chat, and we'll also email it to you today for you to give us feedback on today's workshop topic. And please join us again next month on November 13th. We will be talking about ethics and the humanities. And Dr. Manigo, this may be a great session that you can add to as well with your insight. But any questions for us? We will definitely tell Dean Scriven all of your comments here in the chat. A great presentation and excellent.
Hey, Dr. White, I was going to ask Dr. Scriven also funding opportunities in this context for ethical and responsible AI. If you get to know, federal agencies, local agencies who does support scholarly initiatives for ethical and responsible AI, I would like to know about those opportunities. As
Absolutely. And we do have some micro grants for that area. I'll send that to you. But Dean Scriven is back and probably can answer that as well. But we will definitely look at partnerships for developing ethical AI procedures. Dean Scriven, we missed you.
Maybe the AI didn't want me to finish that answer because my Wi-Fi went out. but I think I was just wrapping by saying that we have to expose students to the tools, but we have to make sure that we do it in such a way that preserves the foundational educational skills that we're trying to communicate. In that regard, many professors have utilized the tools for training, but then their assessments, they structure in such a way that the student has to demonstrate mastery. Everything can't be delivered in front of the professor because sometimes we have online classes, but in a nutshell, what we have had to take a hybrid approach to make sure that our students get the best of both worlds, given the modern shifts and changes that we've undergone in terms of technology and how it's infused with higher education.
Thank you.
And Dr. Keith has a question.
Okay.
I was just wondering if there's a way for us to look at how and assess how faculty members are using AI in their classroom. I'm sorry, I came from another meeting, so I came in late. So is there a way in which we're assessing faculty members so that we can see how we're using it as a learning tool to help our students and see if we're on the right track, since this is new territory for a lot of us?
Yes, there is. And so one thing I'm working with our deputy COO with is polling all the deans and departments to see how they're using AI with an eye toward putting it somehow in our assessments to understand what the connection is between the utilization of AI and student success. So if we have learning objectives and metrics we're trying to hit, then the question becomes, how is the technology helping us toward those objectives? Because if it's not, if it's about the same, or it's less, or it's not connected, then we have an ROI question. We're putting a lot of money into this.
Sure.
If so, why are we doing it if it's not improving outcomes? Mm-hmm. So you're asking the right question, because resources are precious. We have to make sure that if we're going to invest these resources, we're getting the return on investment that's commensurate with the investment, and our students are getting the success improvements that we're seeking. Otherwise, we got to go back to the drawing board. Great question.
So Dean Scriven, you have a lot of compliments in our chat on a great job and something to think about. So we thank you. Dean Scriven will be back in the spring to do another topic with us. So thank you, and we appreciate you sharing your information with us today.
Thank you all. Thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to it.
All right. Everyone have a nice day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.